What's up, guys? Ron from Ronald Law, and we're going to be doing a lawyer reaction to now the body cam footage of Odell Beckham Jr. being removed from his American Airlines flight. Now, this happened back in November, and we saw a little bit of chatter about it. There was very little footage about actually what transpired on that plane. So we're going to walk through that video and see if Odell did anything wrong and if he deserved to be kicked off that flight. All right, Ron from Ronald Law, and if you follow this channel, you know that I'm a commercial real estate investor, and in this video, we're going to talk about Odell Beckham Jr. and the body cam footage from the medical professionals as well as the police officers who arrive at the scene, and some of their dialogue, especially behind the scenes, is really interesting about how they viewed the situation. And we'll give a summary about whether they should have removed him from the plane, whether American Airlines was in the wrong, and what you can do in terms of your private rights as a property owner. Let's get started.
To a medical emergency at the Miami International Airport in Miami, Florida.
So I think that's important, right? We need to phrase this approach in terms of this was a medical incident. Nobody was accusing anybody of violating any laws. And in particular, right, we always hear this, that you must obey the flight attendants, the airline pilots, or else it's a felony, right? But the reality is that there are very specific rules that you have to breach. And so if we're looking here, it is 49 U.S.C. section 46504, and it's a crime to assault or batter a crew member. Makes total sense, right? It's that touching, it's striking, anything where you're, crew member, flight attendant, pilot, that sort of thing. That's a federal crime, okay? We get that. 49 U.S.C. section 46504 also makes it a civil offense to interfere with a crew member, but it's not jail time. And so it's a $25,000 fine. Everything else is a civil matter. And so I think that we get a lot of misinterpretation when people say, oh yeah, you have to obey what they say. Yes, you do, to the extent that it interferes with them doing their job. But if they're just telling you something, it is not a crime. You cannot be arrested for not obeying them until it rises to the level, until your conduct rises to the level that it interferes with them being able to do their job, right? And I think it's really important because that's a distinction that's going to play out later in Odell's case about what is he actually doing. All right, so let's go back to this video.
Due to the flight crew fearing he was seriously ill and that his condition would worsen through the 5-hour flight, they called for police and fire rescue.
So I think this is going to be standard procedure that anytime you have a perceived medical emergency, they're going to bring police, they're going to bring fire rescue. But I'm not sure if I buy this, right? The flight crew was worried that he's seriously ill. Did they get confirmation? Was there any evidence? What is the evidence of him being seriously ill compared to just kind of a he said, she said, which is a hearsay testimony?
Hello. It's a football player, and it seems like either drunk too much or is something that is not responsible.
Okay, rescue's here, no?
No, but this is not.
So from the beginning, they know who he is. They know he's Odell Beckham. He's a famous football player. You know, even if he's a free agent, and as of this video, he's still a free agent, although he may sign with my own Dallas Cowboys. But they know who he is, right? And I think that that does change the certain level of interaction, is when you know you're dealing with celebrity, somebody important. The airlines has a certain duty to treat these people, I don't say differently, but more consistently, knowing that their actions are going to be magnified and they're going to be under a microscope.
Upon arrival, the officer suspected Odell was extremely intoxicated. But first, let's hear a word from today's sponsor.
You know it. He opens up his eyes. Sir, are you able to get up? Can you get up, please?
So right here, I think this is a pretty easy case of a command or a request, and then he complies, right? Odell sits up when he says, can you sit up? This has got to be one of the first lines of questioning or interaction from this officer, from this body cam. And from my perspective, it doesn't seem all that bad, and we don't have some other physical evidence of severely intoxicated, right? So it sounds a lot by By the way, full disclaimer, I want to say that, I'm a Cowboys fan, so I wasn't really a big proponent when he was just slaughtering us on the New York Giants, but I follow Odell on Twitter, so just get that out of the way.
You okay? Yeah. What's wrong? He's probably on a deep sleep. You know where you're at, sir?
All right, so if you can't quite pick that up, they asked him, "Do you know where you are, sir?" Odell responds with Miami. I mean, again, it may be slurred, there may be other tells in there, but in terms of the law and actually complying, I have a hard time thinking that this is going to rise to anything, any accusations, certainly not to a criminal level of he was clearly intoxicated, he refused to follow commands. Odell is maybe intoxicated, but or drunk. He is not rising to the level of a lot of these cases you see where the people are falling over. They cannot talk. They're incoherent, right? That's not Odell here.
Okay. He looks good to me.
Okay. No, sir. Where's his pants?
Oh, sorry?
Where's the baby's pants? Are they on now?
Yeah. They weren't on before? Go back. Go back? We're good. Yes.
Again, and now, so this is fire rescue here. They're the EMTs, they're the paramedics that they're reporting to a medical emergency, right? That I'm sure that they get this all the time, but severely intoxicated club goers, they get on a plane, they're passed out, they're drooling, right? They may have vomited and they're sitting in their own vomit. These are the people that are very concerned about drug overdoses, completely unresponsive passengers, and that's what they're reporting to, right? They think they're coming onto this plane to find somebody blackout drunk, sitting in their own pool of vomit, overdosing on cocaine. That's not what we have here. And so the responding officer is telling the EMTs, we do not have a medical emergency, right? Sure, Odell, he may be drunk, he may be coming back from the club and he's tired, but it is not a medical emergency that he needs any treatment. He does not need any medical treatment on the plane where it's difficult to administer, it's going to cause a lot more paperwork. And that's his police officer opinion.
Yeah, we're good. Okay, good.
You know how many times you've shaken him to put his seatbelt on and he
Listen,
responds?
if you don't want him to fly, that's a decision that you guys are going to have to make.
So this is a good point too, and I'm glad we get to address it pretty early in the video. There is a distinction, and always, I try to remind people of this all the time. There is the law, which is a criminal penalty, maybe a civil issue, a statutory fine, and that is the law. They can put you in jail. And then there's always going to be your private right as a property owner to deny service. Again, as long as it's not on federal discrimination, you can deny service and you can choose to remove people from private passage, from private property. We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone. And that's what it's sounding like here is this is the police. They are well trained. They do this a lot. There is not a medical emergency. He has not broken any laws that are, clearly visible based on the evidence and the interaction that these police officers have seen. So no crimes. Yet when you hear a little bit from him, he says, if you don't want him to fly, that's American. And so I think that's a very useful fact because this video has proven everything that, when this thing came out a few months ago, it was Odell could have done this, he did that, he must have done something criminal or disobeyed the flight crew, yada, yada, yada. And they said, let it come out. Now that the video is out, we see these interactions away from Odell. He didn't even hear this. The flight attendant saying, he wouldn't do this. He had his pants off. Well, now the police officer says, if that's a case of he said, she said, American may choose to not let him fly, but this is not going to be a criminal matter. I'm not going to write up an arrest report for him. I'm not going to issue a citation, disorderly conduct, any of that stuff.
That's, you tell the captain, and then we'll get him out. But that's something that you guys got to make.
Multiple times, multiple people. Hey, sir, put your seatbelt on. All we're getting is this.
Then that's up to you guys.
Yeah, no.
That's up to you guys. And I don't really say anything wrong. He might be tired or have taken a long trip and doesn't want to follow orders. That's a whole other animal.
He told her he just came from a club.
Okay, I get that. He's tired and he's taking
Like
stuff.
this, and he's not even responding us to put on the seatbelt.
His pants are on now.
His pants are on.
Well,
Now?
he had shorts on otherwise. Yeah.
Okay. Because I put it down as a no patient found.
I tried to read.
So this statement from the flight attendant, it kind of mirrors everything that came out back in November. They were concerned about his health, and I think from their perspective, they maybe had a couple of signs, but it didn't really rise to the level of an actual medical issue before they took off. But it's a 5-hour flight. I get it. It's going to be long. It looks like a full plane, and they didn't want to have an issue en route when they're in the air and their options are more limited and they don't have all of this police support. And so that was their decision. You know, I get it from their private perspective, but to try and paint this incident as anything more than just a disagreement, you know, between, frankly, it's just a he said, she said. And does that rise to the level that the airlines is going to choose to inconvenience all the other passengers for this risk? That's what it's coming down to, and that's what it's sounding like from all of this behind the scenes footage.
Like, we have a procedure that we have to follow. If he refuses to get off, you're gonna have to deboard everybody.
So here the officer is giving you some color about eventually, you know, what happens is that if a passenger refuses to get off the plane when they've been requested the first time, they deplane everybody else before they forcibly remove somebody from the plane. Makes total sense. Safety of other passengers, minimize that collateral damage.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
You know he doesn't want to come off.
He does not want to come off.
And so I'm going to add a little bit of color here. He stated that he's kind of asking him to get off the plane. And I think Odell is really just trying to preserve the situation. Now that he's awake, he's more cognizant. And I base this off of, you know, a lot of the tweets that he tweeted afterwards was really just, everybody's writing this, they're making it a big deal. He really just wanted to go to LA. I don't think this is him instigating. He was not trying to promote this controversy. He did not feel, you know, disrespected or any of this. He didn't have airing of grievances against American for this. You know, he wasn't publicizing after the fact. No, opinion is just that he was trying to salvage it and see if this plane could actually take off now that he has responded to a neutral third party, police officer, as well as the EMTs, and they've given him a clean bill of health. I think he's trying to preserve and say, hey guys, you thought I was intoxicated and incoherent. You brought in PD and the EMTs who both cleared me, third parties, and they said I'm fine to fly. Why don't we just fly? And I think that's what they are interpreting as refusing to deplane.
Oh my God!
That's Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham.
I mean, what have you done to make him want to... Can I get his signature?
Oh, really?
He was in underwears. He told the lady that he's been clubbing all night. He's probably...
So this one, again, if they're relying on this single incident that may or may not be corroborated by other passengers, it's kind of interesting to me, the in his underwears versus shorts. Again, it's really coming down to a lot of this culture stuff. If he's wearing pants and he is wearing athletic shorts and then boxer shorts underneath that, this type of situation is very easy to interpret one action as either too much or still acceptable, because it kind of blows my mind how people can get on the plane in booty shorts. These women can get on very, very short shorts and no underwear, and they can be allowed to board a plane in nothing, compared to boxer shorts, which are longer, which are looser than a lot of the other things. So I just say that because the burden of proof is going to be very different. If you're trying to accuse somebody of criminal acts, if you're trying to accuse them of something criminal, your burden is beyond a reasonable doubt. It's much, much higher. If you're looking for a civil issue, American has a lot of power here. They can do whatever they want. However, they will be judged in the court of public opinion. And that's what you guys are here to do, is to understand, hey, these are he said, she said. We have this video evidence of the scene from police officers, and you get to decide who is in the right, who was reasonable in removing Odell from this flight.
Got you.
Make sure. Just get off the plane. Just get off. Get off the
You can get off the... You just... If you... Hey. This guy, people are telling him, hey, get off the plane. Don't make everybody deboard. He goes, fuck you.
He needs to get off, right? Severely intoxicated, belligerent.
No, he just that he was unresponsive prior to push. His crew at this time don't feel comfortable with him flying.
So maybe this is what it comes down to. the crew does not feel comfortable with him on this flight and they want to remove him. And I think that's a very different approach in terms of how this was initially reported, how it was relayed as a medical emergency and this is for his safety. If they just don't feel comfortable with him, that's how they should come out and say that. So at this point, the interaction and this whole incident has completed, has reached the crescendo, which is American has stated they do not want him on this flight. It is their right as a private company to deny him boarding, and they can make up any reason. I think that it's not the best reason, but they can make it up. They're going to choose. They're going to issue that warning. Odell can refuse, and they're going to follow the procedure. He becomes aware of the procedure because they're talking and everybody's chattering in the background, and so that's where you get these other passengers who are engaging in him, and you have the choice words being exchanged. There's another interaction with the gentleman when he says, "I'll do it I will get off the plane for everybody else except for you. Maybe this little girl. It's the only girl I feel sorry for." And that's what happens, right? It's just going to play out to the logical extremes with people kind of entrenched in their positions. Don't think that, again, there's a legal basis for anything criminal. And I don't even think there's really a basis for like a civil suit. If there was, you haven't even met that 51%. Instead, the interaction has de-escalated so far down that now American is playing the only card that they have, which is, we don't feel comfortable with you on our flight, therefore we're going to kick you off.
I appreciate it. The only person I appreciate you're going to wait 40 minutes, and I'm going to be on a private plane home. Good. Yeah, with your fat ass. Yeah, I bet. Enjoy the cheese board on the way home.
All right, so this type of interaction, not great. Not a great look for Odell as he's trying to convince a GM or a team that, he's the guy and he's responsible and mature. He can join and get paid. I get it. Stephen A. had a great reaction of, look, I don't think this is on Odell, but it's not what you're trying to do when you are trying to sell yourself to a team and not just get signed, but you want to get paid. You want a big payday. Kudos to both sides for keeping it calm.
I'll give him another opportunity. Mr. Beckham, will you depart now? Don't forget your stuff up here.
So here we go. This is Odell getting off the plane. And Odell is fairly nice to the officers. Thanks him for his phone.
That way you can call. All right.
Have to wait, and the bags will be in LAX when he gets there.
So here they wrap it up. Some of that post stuff for the bags are on the plane. I'm not sure if that's actual procedure because I have heard it a lot that you cannot check bags for a passenger who is not on the plane. So I'm not sure if that's actually correct. They should be required to hunt through the baggage compartment and pull his bags because if he's not on the plane, there's a big terrorist risk. You cannot do that as a policy.
And on the incident, Odell also indirectly addressed the event on Twitter, saying, "Never in my life have I experienced what just happened to me. I've seen it all."
So afterwards, let's look at what this attorney, Odell Beckham, he boarded the flight. I think this was, it was hard for me to track down. I couldn't find any record of this. Here, we got this guy, David Davaliviere, looks like legitimate, great law firm, but I couldn't find any press release or statement other than Twitter. So I don't know if Twitter is the only statement, and even again, a third party, Ian Rappaport, he was asleep. I think this is a good statement. It does what it does and keeps the attention as low as possible, right? So it responds to the incident, but it doesn't try to make it anything more or make it any bigger. So unnecessary. So the thing that's interesting about the lawyer statement at the time was we didn't know what actually had happened. And so we just had two sides of the story. And I think a lot of people assumed the worst, right? They said Odell, he was angry, he was, unruly. He could have done any number of things, thrown his drink or just swore at everybody, dropping F-bombs and just threatening people. So we didn't really know why he was removed from this plane. When we see this actual body cam footage, it is really milquetoast. I mean, really American. Overall, Odell has kind of turned the corner from that. I think he's moved on. He's talking about his kids, and he tweeted for his son. But That's it. And the real takeaway is try to comply, but if not, there's not going to be a lot of penalties for private companies enforcing whatever they want. This was some of the lowest level antics to justify kicking somebody off your plane and inconveniencing all those other passengers.
It's believed he did not receive a citation and was released as a result of the incident.
So as of now, he still, again, hasn't been charged. There's no criminal aspect. There's no trespass warning from the Miami airport. There is no ban from American Airlines. This whole thing has gone down really overblown out of proportion. That's it for this Lawyer Reacts for Odell Beckham Jr. Smash the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.